It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millzy, back with Hometown Commander, and we are back for another episode of Millzy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 of the deck list in front of us on my quest to out-brew your favorite Magic channel. We're calling this week Humans Week, because all of the decks this week are going to surround around the human tribe, whether it be two colors like we saw yesterday, three colors today, and more colors as we go on this week. Eowyn is the commander of the Riders of Rohan precon, and actually Andrew and I both couldn't decide who was going to do this one, so we both made brews for it, so you're going to see both of our brews coming up within the next day or so. Also this Friday we'll be posting another podcast episode like we did last week for Food and Fellowship for this precon, so if you're interested in hearing us talk more about this precon and the lore behind it, and letting Andrew gush a little bit about his love for the lore, you can check that out on Friday. But Eowyn is a 2 blue, red, white, 5/4 human knight creature with first strike. It's the beginning of combat on your turn. If another human entered the battlefield under your controller's turn, create 2/2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Then if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. So I originally had a list brewed for this deck, and just talking to Andrew by recording the podcast, I had a couple more ideas that I needed to flesh out the deck like this, because this is something I'm trying to brew for myself. Between this and the commander we're going to talk about tomorrow, or the next time you see me here on channel, these are my two picks for humans decks that I want to try. And so this was something that I wanted to try to get the best list I could to start testing with. And I think I finally found it. I think I found the list I like, and we'll talk a little bit about what specifically I mean by that when we get up to the creatures, because I think there's a lot of synergy. But let's talk about the lands first. 34 lands. Did my best to play around a little bit with what's here. Now, again, I built this for myself, so I'm playing the fetch lands, I'm playing the shock lands, I'm playing the tri lands, things like that. But I think there's a couple gold lands that work really well in this deck. Plaza Heroes seems great. We're playing a ton of legendary creatures, so I think this makes a ton of sense. Path of Ancestry came in the deck, and I think it's still a slam dunk considering every creature in our deck is a human. I think that works really well. The Mystic Monastery comes in tapped and taps for all 3 of our colors. We're playing the Cavern of Souls, which just got that pretty version as Paths of the Dead in the set. Playing City of Brass just to help us out with the 3 colors. We're playing Minas Tirith from the new set, and we are also playing Shinka, which is Helm's Deep in the set. So we're checking out that one. I don't know. I mean, gives a creature first strike, which doesn't seem half bad, but it comes down and taps for red. But I like it. I think it's a good spread of colors. We're playing good selections of lands. Castle Ardenvale just got that pretty version in the Realms and Relics as well, so I like that one. But again, just trying my best to spread out my colors, spread out as much of the ability to get 3 colors on one land as I can, but just spread out my colors. You can see the color disparity is very centered in white, so you could argue that I could take out some of the red-blue lands for more red-white or red-white or white-blue lands, but I think this will fit. I think it'll do well, and in my slight kind of gold fishing on my own, it seemed like the land base did really well. Getting them into the enchantments and the artifacts, and I think this is where my deck is going to shine. I love tribal decks. I love go wide creature decks. I love token decks, and I've always found the thing that helps us the most when it comes to tribal decks and go wide decks is our enchantment support and our combat support. And I think this selection of enchantments is going to help with that. Aggravated Assault is a card that's going to scare some people, but I built in a way to hopefully try to take some extra combats if possible, especially if we can pump all of our creatures up with something like Coat of Arms or Flowering of the White Tree or Intangible Virtue, so that they can't, be blocked easily, and that they're going to, the blockers aren't going to do very much damage to us, so we can keep getting in for more combats. Aggravated Assault is paired with 2 cards in the deck. The Reaver Cleaver, which says equipped creature gets +1/+1 and trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we create that many treasures. Hopefully, Reaver Cleaver will make enough treasures with Aggravated Assault to pay for it. To give us the extra combat. The other thing is Relic of Legends. If we have anything giving our creatures vigilance, we have Radiant Destiny, and we have some other creatures that give out vigilance like Baragond. Hopefully we could even use Relic of Legends to tap our humans that are attacking for the 5 mana to activate Aggravated Assault. So there's a couple plans to try to do that. Noise Procession is going to double up not only the tokens we're making from other effects, but from Eowyn as well. Breath of Fury is kind of an interesting card that I feel like could help us end a game. You enchant a creature, and when that creature deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice it and attach Breath of Fury to another creature. Everything untaps, and you get another combat. So what you could do with Breath of Fury is if we have enough tokens around and they're big enough, or we could give them any sort of evasion, which we'll talk about here in a second. As long as one of them hits in with Breath of the Fury, we move them to another token that could then hit in, and we could hopefully end the game with those attacks. And we'll talk about how I plan to do that once we get up top. Flowering of the White Tree. Legendary creatures get +2/+1 on Ward 1. Other creatures get +1/+1. This is a great buff, and the Ward 1 is going to help a ton in protecting our commander just that slight amount more. Changeable Virtue to give all of our tokens +1/+1 in Vigilance. I love this because they can attack and then they could block. Outlaw's Merriment is probably a teeny bit expensive for what it does, but I still like it fits the mold. It makes a selection of human tokens all come in with haste. Some of them come in with Trample, Lifelink, or damage. I think we like the trample one the most since we have lots of ways to pump it up. It means we're going to hopefully get through some damage, but I don't think we really mind. I think all three of them are great, and we get them every turn and they come in with haste. So they're going to activate Eowyn by coming in, and then they're going to be able to attack, which is great. Paladin class is one of my favorite white enchantments for creature decks. I mean, just for 1 mana, your opponents have to spend 1 more mana on your turn to cast spells, which is not nothing, but I really care about the last 2 effects. Now, the second to last one, creatures control got +1/+1, so this is just a Glorious Anthem type effect once we level it up, and we can do that at any time on our turn. And then when we get up to the last one, this is the great part. Whenever you attack until the end of your turn, target attacking creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gets double strike. Ooh, well, this is going to get good, especially if we have a flyer or something like that or something with trample, right? If we put that Reaver Cleaver, or we have other abilities to give some creatures trample, we put this on a trampler. Trample double strike is a powerful combination. Radiant Destiny is a tribal enchantment I just love. For 3 mana, we get +1/+1 to each creature of that type, and as long as we have 10 or more permanents, and we keep that for the rest of the game, they also have Vigilance. So now all of our regular creatures will have Vigilance, whereas Intangible Virtue just gives our tokens Vigilance. There's a lot of Vigilance enablers, and sure, we could probably play like Brave the Sands instead, but I like the buff, and I like the added thing that the Ascend never goes away once you hit 10. Rhystic Study, we want to draw, Rhystic Study kind of pairs with Smothering Tithe for being our enchantments that are going to hopefully just give us some value over the course of the game. Pardon me. Rhystic Study is hated for what it does, but it does a great job at it. And we got a couple haste enablers. Rising of the Day is going to give all of our creatures haste, and then legendary creatures get a buff, and Roar of Resistance is going to give all of our tokens haste, and then we can, for 1 in a red, give everybody a flat +2. So I like the combination here. 1 gives it everyone, 1 gives it just the tokens. You could argue you could cut Roar and just play this in Fervor, but I like this disparity here. I think they kind of both work well for what we're trying to do. We're playing a lot of tokens in the deck, so I think the Roar Resistance is more than fair. And then for an extra 2 red mana, we can just give a big buff. Shared Animosity, this one just got that pretty new reprint in the deck, and it's a great card. My only gripe with Shared Animosity in the deck is just that, remember, it says whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares type with it, which means with Eowyn's ability, only the humans that declare that attack would get that buff. Those 2 humans that come in tapped and attacking won't get the buff. So that's something to remember, and it's why we're going to talk about one of my favorite cards I added to the deck here up in the artifacts and why it's really important. We talked about that Tithe. Okay, so as far as mana artifacts go, we're playing the Arcane Signet, we're playing the Chromatic Lantern. I know Chromatic Lantern's it's a mana artifact that no one loves anymore. It's too expensive, what have you. I just think it does well here because it's going to give all of our lands the ability to tap for any color. Midnight Clock is one of my favorite mana rocks of all time. It of course comes in tabs for blue, but after a 4-turn cycle, or 3-turn cycle, we get to shuffle our hand and our graveyard back into our deck and draw a fresh 7. That could be really important, especially if we're running out of cards, or if we got a board wipe and we want to get some of those creatures back. I love it. Mox Amber, because we're playing a ton of legendary creatures, so Mox Amber is going to almost always tap for something good we want. Same thing with Relic of Legends, right? Untap a tap and untap legendary creature you control to add a mana. And the best part about Relic of Legends is it's this ability on this card doing it, not the creature. So humans, legendary humans that came in that turn can be tapped with Relic of Legends for its ability. Soul Ring got a couple pretty pretty new arts, but we got the one there from the commander decks. And then the 2 talismans that actually came in the deck, because I think they're the better choice of the 2, red, white, and then the blue, white. Happy to see Talisman of Progress get a reprint. And that's good because both of these are, again, we're centered in white, so we care about the talismans that get white primarily, because we're going to need it the most. I had actually considered Boros and Azoria Signet as well, but I found, this and this to be a little bit more helpful. And then we talked with the Reaver Cleaver already and getting us treasures. All right, getting up into spells, and we're not playing a ton of them because we're really trying to go wide and have fun, but we're trying to play some spells that can help us. In the instance, Boros Charm, Clever Concealment, Flawless Maneuver, for Antifarious Protection for protecting our board. Boros Charm can give a creature double strike, but mainly we want to use it to give our creatures indestructible. Clever Concealment with enough creatures up can just protect our whole non-land board of permanents from a Farewell or a Cyclonic Rift or things like that. Flawless Maneuver gives all of our creatures indestructible. And then Teferi's Protection, right, phases our whole board out and protects our whole board. What I like about Teferi's Protection and Clever Concealment is they phase things out, not exile and return them back. So all of our tokens are safe. Our tokens will stay and they'll come back. Whereas if I just, used one of those mass bounce spells, we would lose all of our tokens. Playing some Brainstorm for some draw. I think the deck's going to do a fairly good job at drawing anyway. Eowyn draws. We have a couple other creatures that, things that draw cards, but never idea to put a little bit more in. I'm playing this an expressive iteration for the draw, but, we could find after some testing we need a few more things. And Light and Tutor, because we have a lot of artifacts and enchantments we really care about, and so I think this one feels right. Fierce Guardianship, of course, we're in blue and we have access to it, so why not play it? It could potentially protect our board, protect our commander from something. Jeskai Charm is a card that I like here because, especially for the third one, creatures could go plus one and lifelink on the turn. And the right scenario, giving a lifelink to our entire board could keep us alive for the rest of the game, right? We have a big board of humans, we give them all lifelink, and then we gain 30, 40, 45 life. And now our opponents have to figure out how the heck to get through it, other than commander damage. I think that's really beneficial. Rapid Hybrid, Reality Shift, and Swords to Plowshares for removal. Probably could use a little bit more removal, but again, this is the point of the deck where we're first starting to try to figure out, hey, what do we have that, what do we have to get consistency wise? And if we need more of it, we can always get more of it. Up for the sorceries, 4 Orlings. This card seems like a lot of fun. I love my X token creation spells, and I think this one's pretty great. Give you X 2/2 human knight. Take creature tokens with trample and haste, and then whenever one more creature control deal damage to a player, we become the monarch. That's going to become important because we do have a couple of humans that care about the monarch, mainly the new Aragorn from the deck, but they come in trample and haste, and they are knights. And knights was the one thing I hadn't thought about as far as tribal synergy. Knights and soldiers, and we'll kind of talk about once we get up to the creatures. What reminded me of that, Andrew, was a big play in that, reminding me of the knight synergies that exist in humans. And then I added the soldiers kind of by doing some research. But we'll talk about that in a second. Jessica's Will. I love Jessica's Will wearing red. It's probably one of my favorite modern red spells. It's great. Add some mana or look at the top 3, or, exile the top 3. And you can play them this turn more often than not. Pardon me. We're going for that red mana. We're going to get 6 or 7 red mana, hopefully, and just play out a bunch of things in our hands. Rally at the Hornberg is one of my favorite new spells. Make 2 human soldier creature tokens, and then humans you control gain haste until end of turn. This is great because we can give all the little things that came in haste, or all of our creatures we just put down haste and get them in and swinging. And then Supreme Verdict, just saw that pretty new art from the deck, but it's a great board wipe. It can't be countered, and you destroy all creatures. I had honestly considered maybe upgrading up to Time Wipe. It's just 1 mana more, but we could put our commander back in our hand before we wipe the board. But what I've always felt is that with board wipes, if you're going to wipe the board, you're going to wipe the board. And as much as you want to get things back from your board wipe at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to wipe the board, and I think Supreme Verdict's great for that. Maybe we find we need another board wipe, and that'll be something, right, we can determine as we test. But let's get into the creatures, and I'm really happy with where this creature slate got to. I feel like I did everything I wanted to do with this little section of creatures. I used a lot of things from the deck. I used a lot of things from the set, and I actually just brought in a couple new humans that just zoom the deck forward. So let's talk about it. The big reason to play knights in the deck is Herald of Hoofbeats, a human knight that has horsemanship and give other knights horsemanship. The thing I realized when Andrew was talking about it on the podcast was that Eowyn's knight The tokens she makes are knights. The tokens for Orlingas makes are knights. And there's a couple other creatures that that make I believe that make knight tokens, but a lot of our new humans we're playing are knights. Eowyn's a knight, and we'll talk about a couple more knights as we go through. So that was kind of my first thing. I was like, okay, this could actually work out. We do have a decent amount of knights, including our commander, which means if they can hit in for free with that horsemanship, with enough combats or enough buffing with something like Coat of Arms, a card that I just realized I didn't talk about, which is the one card I wanted to slam into this deck. This is going to make our humans bigger for the more that we have. And then pair that with something like Horn of Gondor to make us more tokens. And those tokens are soldiers, but we'll talk about that again in a second too. Well, now if we can give them unblockable, now our knights are just going to knock in for some huge damage. We'll start with Adeline. Adeline makes a ton of sense for a deck like this. It's a human, right? It's a human knight that pairs with that little knight synergy. But it's a star 4 with stars the number of creatures you control. And then whenever you attack, Adeline doesn't even have to attack. You get a 1/1 that's attacking each opponent. So where we declare our attacks, and then we get a 1/1 attacking each opponent. And the one thing I like about this card with Coat of Arms and some of those other abilities are those 1/1s are going to come in as whatever they would be. So if we have 6 humans in the battlefield, and then we make those humans, they're all going to come in as 8/8s, 9/9s. And now your opponents have to block them, and they come in tapped at attacking. And the best part about this ability is it gets around Ghostly Prison. It gets around all of those effects, because they come in tapped and attacking, we didn't declare an attack. So I love it, and Adeline is a card that seems really fun. Aragorn, King of Gondor, the alternate commander from the deck, is pretty darn good. Vigilance, lifelink, so of course the bigger he gets, the better he is, right, because we gain that life back. When enter battlefield, we get the Monarchs. With the Monarch, you draw at the end of your turn, and someone can take it away by dealing damage to you. But really, we just want the extra card draw from the Monarch. And it says whenever it attacks, up to 1 target creature can't block this turn. Well, that's pretty darn good. And then if you're the Monarch, creatures can't block this turn. Straight unblockability. And that's pretty darn good as well. That's going to help us end the game. Going down as one of the couple new cards that I love the most is Barragond of the Guard, 3 and a white for a 3/3. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance till end of turn. So Barragond is the best if we can get a human down in our main phase, give everything vigilance, and then we can still trigger Eowyn because the human came in this turn, but everything has vigilance, of course, besides those tokens that would come in off of Eowyn. I love this card. I think it's great. It's got a great stat line, and it's going to get even better when we buff it up. Blade Historian coming in and giving all of our attacking creatures double strike. And I love it because it's going to buff those tokens that come in with Eowyn. It's going to buff all of our creatures. Double Strike is going to be a punishing ability, especially the bigger our humans are. And then if there's any way we can give them trample, which we're trying to find as many ways as possible, that Double Strike is going to come into a lot more handy there. Boromir, Warden of the Tower, probably one of my other favorite humans from the set. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if there was no mana spent to cast it, you counter it. It's going to help us potentially stop some of our opponents a little bit, not too much, but it's going to end up hurting someone. And then we get sacrificed to give all creatures we control indestructible on our turn. Love it. I love this ability. It's instant speed. It gives us another kind of flawless maneuver type effect to protect our board if need be. Combat Celebrant, whenever it attacks, if it hasn't been exerted this turn, you can exert it, which means it doesn't untap on the next turn. And if you do, there's additional combat. Well, we have a couple ways to kind of cheekily have fun with this. The main one being Mirage Phalanx. So in Mirage Phalanx or another creature enters the battlefield, if it's not paired, they can pair them together. And its ability says when it's paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature, except it has haste and loses soul bond. So basically, every combat we get a copy of Mirage Phalanx and whatever it's soul bonded to with haste. Well, if we pair this with Combat Celebrant, every combat we're exerting Combat Celebrant and getting another combat. And so all we need to do is get something out like Coat of Arms or a buff enchantment to buff some creatures up so they don't get killed, too easily in combat. And now we have infinite combats that we can end the game with. Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield, creatures you control got +1/+0. So the best part about this is in combat, Eowyn's going to drop those 2 creatures in, and now everybody gets a flat +2/+0. The other thing I like about Barragond is because this goes off at the start of combat, it means that all of our creatures are going to get +2/+2 in vigilance right when those things get in. So these type of effects are even better because we can take advantage of them before we attack. Faramir, Steward of Gondor. Whenever a legendary creature with mana value 4 or greater comes into the battlefield, We can become the Monarch, which we do have a decent amount of those. And then beginning your end step, if you're the Monarch, we make 2 human creature tokens. So if we're the Monarch, we would draw and make 2 1/1s, which is pretty darn good as well. We talked about the Hoofbeats, Knight Exemplar, other Knights you control +1/+1 indestructible. This is mainly here for not only our commander, but the decent amount of Knights that we have. And what they can do for us, Lena, Selfless Champion, again, another Knight, makes a bunch of 1/1 soldier creature tokens for each non-creature token you can, non-token creature you control. And then we can sacrifice deep creatures with less power than Lena indestructible in a turn, which hopefully is a lot of creatures. If we can buff Lena up, we would potentially give indestructible to a lot of things. And the soldiers are something that is a small creature type that we can use as well, mainly on something like Mural. It's going to make us more soldiers for the amount of soldiers we have, but Mural is also going to protect us from spells and abilities of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments on our turn, which is going to help us out in combat so things can't get removed. Lost in Arc Captain is another one of our, whenever it or a human enters, we can tap target creature and opponent controls. I like this because then with Eowyn out, going into combat, if we had a human come in, or Lost in Arc, maybe even if Lost in Arc was the one that came in, now we're tapping down 2 creatures before we even declare attacks. And then being our upkeep, we make a token, which is great as well. Niali, given all of our tokens that are attacking double strike, I think this makes a ton of sense with how many tokens we're making, and even the 2 that come off our commander. And then remember, one of our tokens, we control attack a player. We can exile the top card of your library. During any turn we attack with a token, we can play a card. This extends our hand, gives us more cards to play. Rick is going to take the vote as probably my least favorite card in the deck because I love this card so much. It's just so expensive. I cannot wait for this to get reprinted in Wilds of Eldraine in the list slots, right? Like we did with the Stranger Things in Streets of New Capenna. You're going to see this whole Walking Dead secret lair get reprinted in Wilds of Eldraine, and it's great because this card is terror expensive, but this card is so good. It says, with the beginning, as it enters the battlefield, you choose between First Strike, Lifelink, and Vigilance. All humans you control have those abilities, and as long as you control 4 more humans, all humans get a flat +2/+2. This card, Rick, is going to end a game or just give you so much value. I've had decks where I've swung with Rick out with Lifelink and gained 35 or 40 life back with Rick out. And then now you pretty much don't care about attacking because other than commander damage, your opponents have a tough time dealing with that. Riders of Rohan seems like a really fun card. We can dash it in for 6, give it haste, and then it comes back to our hand at the end of turn, or we can hard cast it for 5. And when it comes in, we get 2 human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. So I love it. 3 bodies for either 5 or 6 mana. And like I said, if you pay the 6, it comes back to your hand and you can play it again the next turn. Sakashima, 1,000 Faces seems really great. We can put on Eowyn or another legendary creature we control if we want to. And then it eliminates the legendary rule, which we're not really playing into at all. We're not playing into any ways to make token copies of anything. But I like it as another copy of Eowyn. If that's something we want to do, it can be another copy of any other creature we control, not just a legendary one. But I certainly like it, and I think it works really well in the deck because it is a human, although when it comes in, it's just going to copy whatever it copies. But I like it. It can give us another copy of our commander and give us another copy of some other effects. Silverblade Paladin. So whenever we can pair this with another creature, and ideally we'll want to pair it with our commander if possible, but there's a bunch of other things. As long as it's paired with another creature, both creatures have double strikes. We pair it with anything, both of them get double strike. And that's pretty darn good as well. Theoden, King of Rohan, is another one of these effects. When it or another human enters the battlefield, the target creature gets double strike until end of turn. So now, when Eowyn goes off the start of combat, we're giving 2 things double strike, and that's great as well. Double strike, again, if we can pair it with Trample, which I wish we had more ways to get Trample in the deck, but we're in the wrong colors for it. We do have one way to get Trample, though, and that's Tori Delvanant, Fury Rider from Debonair United. It says, when it attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Other red attacking creatures you control get trample, and each other white, and then we untap each other white attacking creature control. Well, we have a decent amount of red creatures, so we can get this buff a lot, and the red creatures we do have are going to hit like a truck, which is great. I like Tori. I think it's going to work really well in the deck, and this is a great target, even for something like. This is a great target for something like Sakashima, because then we could potentially get 2 stacks of that ability, or keep the ability around if we really need it. And then 2 of my favorite new humans, Eomer, Marshal of Rohan, 2 in double red for a 4/4 human knight. Whenever one of our attacking legendary creatures you control die, untap all creatures after this phase. There's additional combat. This only activates once per turn. This is a little bit harder to game than Combat Celebrant, because we're not. it's going to be harder for one of our legendary creatures to die than it is to kind of game this. But if any of them do, here's another combat, and this could have our opponents risk blocking us, even if we have some of these cheaper humans, legendary humans, because now they have to decide, do they want to let us take another combat? And Eowyn is a 4/4, so it's already a great body. And then Eowyn Fearless Knight. I think obviously our commander is the best version of Eowyn in this set, but this one's pretty darn good as well. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with greater power than Eowyn, which could be bad if we have a coat of arms or something like that. So we need to be a little bit careful with that. But it says legendary creatures you control gain protection from each of those creatures' colors until end of turn. If we take someone's commander, we could potentially prevent a player from blocking us completely. Again, provided that their commander is all of the colors. The example I gave on the podcast on Friday was that, take an example of a commander like Kenrith, the Return King. Kenrith is a white creature, but it has abilities that make it a 5-color commander. If we exiled Kenrith with Eowyn, we would only get protection from white. So it do have to watch out, what colors certain cards are, but there it is. There's my first go at humans. I think this deck, or Jeskai humans, and this deck looks like a ton of fun. I think it's going to take some testing to really determine if we have enough draw, if we have enough staying power, if we have enough, hitting power. I don't normally talk about my considering board, but this is a deck where I actually had a really tough time cutting some cards out. Mainly Vanquisher's Banner felt really good. Biden of Thassa felt pretty good to get some draw. In Cathar's Crusade felt really good. I kept running out of spots, and They Shall Know No Fear from the 40k decks feels good as another instructability. Taunt the Rampart feels great to kind of goad and give creatures unblockable. And then just a bunch more humans, Frontline Medic, Prince Imrahil, Aomer, Bastion Protector, either of the Thalias, really. All the Thalias are pretty good. I had a tough time deciding on the humans in this deck, but I think this is the crop that I'm going to try to start, and then maybe we interchange a few as we go. But all right, well, we talked about creatures. Let's get in to the playtest. Opening hand, we have all of our colors, and we have some pretty darn cool cards. So let's draw. We're going to put this Path of Ancestry in tap turn 1. Turn 2, we get another great card there. We see the Strand. I think we crack the Strand and go down to 39 and go get our Rogran Triumph. Whenever you use your fetch lands in a 3-color deck, almost always the first card you want to go get is your Triumph. And then what I would do is just slam the Skull Clamp down with our extra mana. Okay, turn 3, perfect. Let's get the Training Center down, and then I think I want to just slam Boromir down here and get that kind of started. Turn 4, let's get the Glacial Fortress down. This comes in untapped because of this Triumph. Logic would tell me Rick could be a good choice here, but I don't have enough humans yet, and I don't want Rick to just get removed. So what I think I'm going to do is put down the Exemplar and hold up Rapid Hybrid here in case we need to get rid of something our opponent. Boromir isn't a knight, so he's not going to get the benefit of the Exemplar, but that's okay. That's perfectly okay. Turn 5, Stormcroak Coast. Now, the problem with just jamming Eowyn here is we didn't have a human come in, so we wouldn't get her ability. And that kind of stinks because we kind of want to use her ability. So I still think I do put her down because we still can protect it with the Flawless Maneuver. And then on the next turn, Prairie Stream's going to come in tapped, but now we can dump Rick. We get Rick's ability, right? And then at start of combat, we get 2 more, and now those come in as 4/4s. And now we have a huge attack, and both of these guys have indestructible, and this is just a great board. This protects the board. This protects the board. This is going to give our Knights double strike, and now we have a great attack. All right, so we could see where we think we want the deck to kind of trend towards, right? Here we go. 2-lander, Mox Amber, 1 and 2 mana rocks. I love it. This is a land that you want to see. Well, we got the Arid Mesa. Do I have any turn 2 plays? I don't see any, a Talisman, right? So we'll put the Monastery in tapped. We're going to draw next for turn. And we could do this for the Triumph, but then we can't play the We can't play the Talisman, and I kind of want to play the Talisman, but we're kind of stuck into it, right? So I think I'm going to do is shock in the Foundry to play the Talisman. Next turn, we have enough to play this Midnight Clock. So what I would do is do the Mesa. We'll crack it to go grab that Triumph, the Rogran Triumph again. This is going to come in tapped. And then I don't know, did I shuffle the library? And then we could play the Midnight Clock here. The only problem with playing the Midnight Clock here is I'd rather leave up this removal since we have two blue sources. The only problem with playing Midnight Clock here is that we give ourselves a 3-turn clock to play out our hand, and if we don't, then we're just going to end up losing it back into our library. So I don't like Midnight Clock yet. I would actually honestly rather just leave this removal up just slightly. The only other thing that would tell me that we could play the Midnight Clock here is we play the clock, we still leave up Rapid Hybrid, and then next turn we can jam Eowyn and Mox Amber. So let's do that. Let's play the clock. The next turn we see a Sulfur Falls are coming tap. We have 6 mana. We can play Eowyn, the Mox Amber, and then we can still leave up these guys. This is now turn 2 underneath the Midnight Clock. So again, we need to be trying to get the things we really care about out of our hands. We have 7 mana at the moment. I like the Phalanx, but I don't want to pair it with Eowyn. I'd rather wait and pair it with something else. I like the Rohan. I like the Reaver Cleaver. So I think this turn I would get the Rhystic Study and the Cleaver down. And I can't attach the Cleaver yet, but at least gives us that down. And if we hadn't used this, if we hadn't used the Rapid Hybrid, we would still have the Rapid Hybrid open. And then this is our next turn. Let's see, we drew 1 card with Rhystic Study on someone else's turn. This is our last turn. Actually, this turn, the Midnight Clock would go off, and we would shuffle all these back in and draw a fresh 7. But we have lots of mana, and we have Reaver Cleaver to get on to Eowyn to get more mana as well. So I think that did pretty well. But let me know what you guys think of Eowyn down in the comments. Like I said, Andrew's brew for Eowyn will be up on the channel as well coming in the next day or so you can see what he has to brew as well, because I know his approach is slightly different from mine, and we both wanted to take a stab into this. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.